In this video, we're going to discuss cloud storage and how it relates to the files you're going to be using in this class. So when we talk about cloud storage, we're talking about some kind of a server farm that's located remotely where you actually store your file and you use the computing resources from that location or other locations. So if you put a file up from your phone, it goes into the cloud. Like, for example, if you take a picture on your phone, it goes into the cloud, and then it can be accessed from your desktop, from your laptop, for a tablet, as long as those devices are connected to the internet. So four of the large players in the cloud storage business are iCloud, which is Apple's cloud storage system, Dropbox, OneDrive, which is Microsoft's, and then Google Drive here. We're going to be using Google Drive for our class here because of its integration with other Google Docs and Google Sites. So if you make a file on your desktop here, it is synchronized because the data is actually not stored locally. It's stored in the cloud, and everybody is actually going to use it from the cloud. Now, this can be just yourself on a number of different devices, or it could be different people using the same file. So, for example, in class, I might create a file, and then all of you from a phone or from a tablet or from a laptop or desktop can actually work on the same file because the file is stored offline in the cloud, or I should say online in the cloud. So you can see that Amazon is the largest, has the largest cloud infrastructure. Microsoft, Google, IBM are three of the other big players here. This is a picture of what a server farm looks like. This one's in Virginia. And again, just a large set of buildings and so forth. But when you go inside, you're going to see banks of computer equipment, and it's going to be, various different types of solid state drives and so forth that are in computers and servers and all sorts of different devices, routers, and that are both storing your information, but also processing it and sending it outward. So here's a picture of a Amazon Web Services server farm. And you can see it's pretty massive. And here's an example of a new one under construction in Sweden. So when we look at our Google Drive, okay, so if I went to drive.google.com, you can see that I organize my files in Google Drive. I also use four other web services and so forth to store data just because of various different nuances and strengths that they have. So let's say that I wanted to create a new folder here. So I wanted to create a folder for my class. I'm just going to click on here, and I'm going to say, okay, let's go ahead and say class, and I'll say 1. Okay, so here I'm going to create a class here. So I have this class right now. This is going to be a folder, it says class 1. Here's another one right here that I just made just a moment ago. I'm just going to delete this one to see that once you start it, you can always undo it. So this is going to be a folder here now for this class. And when you see this right here, you'll see that there's no files in this, but we can put all sorts of various files into this folder. So the simplest way is just to create them. So for example, whenever you see the plus, it's going to indicate that you can add something. So if I click here, I can add any of the Google Docs. So if I add just a word processor file, this is a Google Docs word processor. I'll just put their word processor. And then I can go over here, and you can see that there's one right there. Let's go ahead and click another one, and I can make a spreadsheet and so forth. So you can make a variety of different file types, and they're going to be stored right here in the cloud. So we'll see them in the cloud. Now, if you don't see it actually deposited in your folder, you're going to want to look right up here, and you're going to see this little folder with an arrow on it. If you click on the move right there, it can tell you where you want it to be. So right now I have 2 files in this new class folder that I created. Whenever you see this little icon here, which is a square with a diagonal arrow going, it means you can open it up. So I can open that up, and now I can see the contents of that folder there. So just be aware that's kind of a common icon, so that you can see the file structure and where things are. So again, I'll just change the view so we can see these documents here. I can also, in addition to the huge variety of different files I can create within the Google Drive, I can also upload files. So if I want to pull files off my desktop, I can simply click on the up arrow there and say File Upload. And then I could go and I can pull up photos and so forth. So for example, here's a portable network graphic, a PNG of the CSUN seal. I could also take up here let's say, an existing like Microsoft Word document or anything else. So you can store any of these in the cloud. And then in terms of the cloud permissions, it's best to set your permissions at the level of the folder that you want to be sharing. So for example, if this was for our class, I could open this up here and click on the triangle there and say, I'd like to share this. If I share this right here, you'll notice right now that it's restricted. Only I have access to this. But if you come down here, you'll see it says change to anyone with the link. If I click on that, then you're going to see an option that anyone with a link can be a viewer or they can be an editor. So if I want you to be able to put your own files and folders into a particular folder, I would click this. And now if I copy that link, if I copy this link here, that means that if I share that link with you, you just simply click on that link and then you have full editing rights within that folder. Now, you need to be careful about this, obviously, because somebody might delete a file or add stuff that they're not supposed to the folder. So just be aware that probably the safer way to go is to make them a viewer. And then if you want to make it private again, you can just go over there and just say restricted. And right now, I haven't added anybody to that list. Let's say I wanted to add somebody else, like let's say myself here with another email. Then I could notify the person that actually sharing that folder with them and giving them either editorial privileges or viewing privileges. So if you set the permissions at the level of a folder, then anything inside that folder is going to have the same permissions. Now, that's true if you create it within the folder. Or if you drag it from outside the folder, so long as it doesn't have some preset permissions. So think of it as a cascade at the top level. Here, this is going to have certain permissions. Therefore, anything which is downstream of that will also have the same permissions, unless I dragged it from another location and it already saved different types of settings. So, for example, if I want the spreadsheet right here, if I want that to have different permissions, I can right click on it and say share. And then on this one here, I could change the permissions of this so that it would actually be different than the host folder in which it's located. So I could open this up and say, okay, I want people to be like a commenter on this. So now they can be a commenter, which is a different level that you have only at the file level. You don't have that at the folder level. So people then can make comments on it. They can view it, but they can also make comments. They just can't make any changes. So there's owner, then there's editor, then there's commenter, and then there's viewer. And then those are the four levels which you can actually see a document. And of course, you can make it restricted and turn it off to anybody other than people that are specified on the list. So if you do want to make it private, you click up here, you say share, and you just put in the emails of the people that you want to share this with. So if I want to share this with Dr. Foley, I would click right there. He would then be an editor, and I could send him an email and so forth to alert him to the fact that it's there for him to use. I can also make folders within folders. So for example, I would click on this one and say that in my class, let's say I want to make a folder here for photos. And so now there's a photos folder. I'll make another one right here. I'll make this one just for, let's say, docs. Okay. So, of course, the structure is going to be dependent upon what your particular needs are. And so you'll notice that if you go back to my drive, I have lots of files, and I also, I color them and I title them in ways that I can find them easier to access and use. And so let's say I went to my photos folder. So these are just a bunch of photos mostly that I've taken here. And let's say I wanted to go into the biology folder, for example, and I want to talk about biomes. So these are different folders. Now, if you look at this, these are folders like, for example, we would have temperate coniferous forests as a subset of biomes, which is a subset of biology, which is a subset of photos. And the only reason I put those dashes there is so it alphabetically it's sourced to the top of the long list of folders that I have, because I use this one quite a bit. So let's say I wanted to mark this folder for some reason just to make it easier. Again, if I right click it, I can change the name. I could make the color change just to make it more noticeable. So if you're looking for a file in your Google Drive, then you can look in let's say that somebody has shared something with you. So I'll click on this and I'll say, shared with me. Now, these are files that I did not make, but that other people have shared with me. So, for example, all these files here were shared on this date with me. I can also look at recent, which is going to be the most recent files that I have or have been working with right here. And I can also mark them with a star if I want to, which would just be ones that have stars, which are like very significant type of files. So the you can purchase more storage on your Google Drive. Like you can see, I have 288 gigabytes in this one out of 2 terabytes. So I got plenty of space. Storage in the cloud is amazingly inexpensive for what you get. But the Google Drive, like iCloud or like Box or Dropbox or that any of the other cloud services and so forth, is a great way to store your files and then to be able to incorporate them into your web pages and so forth for other people to use. Finally, if you click on the gear over here, you can change the settings. So you can the settings on your account. So you'll notice I have mine to convert uploads. When that's clicked, that means anytime I upload a document, it converts it into the corresponding Google Doc format. So for example, if I have an Excel file, a Microsoft Excel file, it'll convert it into a Google Sheet, which I find easier to use in the classroom. And so if you turn that off, it'll upload directly as an Excel file. So if there is a corollary in the Google Suite, like Google Docs is a corollary of all of the word processing documents, it'll convert it directly into a Google Doc. If that's not checked off, then it'll remain in its native form. So for example, if I have a Microsoft Word doc, that Microsoft Word doc will actually appear as a Microsoft Word doc in the Google Drive. And so there's just a little bit of introduction to how to use the Google Drive, and we'll talk more later about how to incorporate those files that you make in your Google Drive directly into your website.